They're really big.
Yeah, it is what it is. Welcome, team players. Last night was the Super Bowl, right? And yes, I'm with you. That should not have been a flag. Absolutely not. But that's not why Philadelphia lost that game. We're going to break down with inside knowledge what happened, what went wrong, what the Eagles could have done. And, MVP or not, that was special. Welcome to Local Football Flavor, connecting the fan bases of the NFL. So, yeah, let's start with the elephant in the room. That was not defensive holding. It just wasn't. There are many different coaches that are very good at this, like Belichick, and Reed is certainly no slouch in this department either, that know how to design plays that will get flags. Part of the film study that these coaches do all year long and give their whole lives towards is figuring out where the refs will be on the field and in what types of situations so they can design routes to make something look much more egregious than it is. Now, I'm against that flag that determined the game essentially for multiple reasons, not the least of which was they did not call flags like that during the entire game. That one essentially kind of came out of nowhere, and to do it inside of the 2 minute warning at the end of the game, completely not acceptable. Now, with that being said, Bob, and this is what we're going to dive into more so than just bitching about flags, why the Eagles blew that game and why it should not have been that way. And this was something that I hope that you as a listener are not experiencing or having to deal with. Living your life in fear. The entire Eagles defense played as if they were afraid Patrick Mahomes was going to beat them over the top. That was what they did the entire game plan. Patrick Mahomes not once tried a pass downfield over the top. The entire Kansas City offense was check down, run after the catch. Eagles making good contact, but leaving too big of a bubble on the field. The Eagles knew they had the best pass rush in the league. They knew they were going to get sacks, and they knew that Kansas City did not want Mahomes to get hit. So rather than giving their pass rush time by playing tight coverage, they didn't. They left the underneaths open all day. And Mahomes ain't stupid. He can read a field. He's not Brock Purdy. I mean, he can see what's going to happen and find the checkdowns and do it, especially when you have 2 weeks of designing them. The Eagles never made that adjustment to cover the underneath and force Mahomes to go over the top, especially after he got hurt and probably couldn't have done it anyway. They never did it. And that is the defensive failure of this game. We could talk about all kinds of other things, Bob. We could talk about Hurts fumbling that ball. We could talk about the fact that Philadelphia's offense was unstoppable in the first half and good in the second half, certainly good enough to win that game, put up 35 points, but obviously slowing down in the second half. And then the magic that is Patrick Mahomes. So, Bob, I want to give you the big floor here because it was creepy.
Well, Joe, I'm not saying, but I'm saying we said all of this on Friday. Every
A lot of
single
it.
word that came out of our mouths on Friday, we're saying again today. We're saying
Mm-hmm.
the Eagles blew a lead in the second half. We're saying the Eagles defense was good enough. We're saying Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. We're saying a veteran coach knew what to do at the end of the game when a not as seasoned coach did not know what to do in the game. We we went and we went over this point multiple times. And rather than beating a dead horse here, I want to discuss the big name of Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this game, for all intents and purposes, when it looked like Patrick Mahomes at the end of the second quarter might not come back in the game, um, it looked like this game was going to be the Eagles, because it was very clear that throughout the whole game, and one of my lays that I put down included a Marquise Valdez Scantling touchdown. He didn't even see the ball,
Nope.
and so going deep wasn't ever an option, and it really isn't ever an option for Kansas City. The Eagles knew what they were getting, and they still didn't stop them. Patrick Mahomes proved today and proved yesterday why he does deserve the league MVP. He's playing with an inferior cast. Now, Travis Kelce is a legend, but he's definitely playing with an inferior cast on offense, where you have guys like Juju getting 45 yards, Sky Moore getting a 4-yard touchdown. All of these things, like, these guys are players that are serviceable. I mean, a lot of teams in the league, when we talk about, like, talent, the NFL is the upper echelon of talent in football. They're all talented. But the level of talent from the Sky Moores to the Travis Kelce's and the Sky Moores to the A.J. Browns, right? There is a large gap in the skill position players. We didn't see it a lot on the field in terms of the run. Pacheco did what Pacheco needed to do to win that game.
Oh, yeah.
Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Hurts did what they needed to do to win that game. I don't know what happened to Miles Sanders. We were talking about Miles Sanders a lot on Friday.
Basically didn't exist.
He didn't exist. They didn't play him. Something must have happened. But when I say that this game, for me at least, when I was down at the casino for an event, and at the end of the first half, I was ready to place a bet on the Eagles plus 13. I thought if Patty Mahomes is down, this game's done, because the Eagles were playing that lights out on offense. Jalen Hurts had all the room to run on the outside. His scrambling ability is chef's kiss. But then when Mahomes was like, okay, yeah, I'm not that hurt, I'm coming back in the game, you knew what the second half script was going to be. Now, I accidentally made a bet that I thought was for the second quarter lead for the Eagles to win the second quarter. It was actually for the Eagles on the third quarter. They changed it as the system was updating. So I kind of got screwed out, because I would have put the same amount of money on Kansas City. I mean, as I said on Friday, when you are in a big game, you rely on players that have been there. You rely on coaches that have been there. And it was proven yesterday that good coaching is really important. We brought this point up many, many, many weeks ago when we stated why you would rather have Bill Belichick, even though you hate him, than the majority of coaches in the league. Why you'd rather have Mike Tomlin than the majority of the coaches in the league, because they find ways. Now, Tomlin does find ways to lose, but they find ways to make inferior players better and great players great. And you see this with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, if they weren't coached by Andy Reid, that would not be a playoff team. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right now. Would not be a playoff team. And that hurts, because they just won the Super Bowl. But without the coaching,
it's a testament to Reid is what it is.
Not coaching, if Andy Reid wasn't to coach, because you could see it in the game plan. You could see it in the first half where, okay, things aren't working. Like that first drive that the Eagles have, and they just stormed right down the field. It felt like the Eagles were going to keep doing that. But Andy Reid, for the coach that he is, hamburgers and all, right? He knows what he's doing. He's been in the league, and he did not allow that to continue to happen. They even, in that first half, got a fumble recovery, which screwed another that I had up of the Eagles making a field goal attempt. Of course they didn't do it because I put money on it, right? But
Bob,
that's really important.
Your bets aside, the thing that might have been the best thing for the Eagles or for the Chiefs, seemed like the worst thing for the Chiefs at the time, was that entire second quarter, the Eagles had the ball. And that was after they hurt Mahomes. So looking back at it, sure, the fumble that Hurts did and then scoring immediately on defense on that play is what kept Kansas City's offense from getting back on the field. But it makes me wonder, in like an alternate universe, if Hurts finishes that drive and Kansas City comes out and he was hobbling before he got shot up at halftime, if he had to legitimately play more in the second half, Mahomes this is, would it have been hurt beyond the point of measure? Would they have had to put heading back out there. Because Mahomes in the second half was a different animal than Mahomes in the first half.
Well, here's what I was thinking. Oh, also, by the way, that Joe Burrow bet actually hit. If anybody did bet that, Mahomes got 182 yards. We pointed that out as a potential thing to sprinkle on. Hopefully, anybody went out there and did do that. But
a couple of the sprinkles hit nice.
The point I wanted to make was the best thing that Philly was doing in that game, in my mind. I mean, Jalen Hurts looked amazing. They had great blocking protection for him to do once he got downfield to get a lot of yards. But the best thing that the Eagles did, and kudos to Sirianni for recognizing this, is your best defense is a good offense.
Mm-hmm.
And they held on to the ball because they knew, if I don't give this ball to Patrick Mahomes, he can't beat us.
That's right.
And a lot of teams, whenever they're playing Tom Brady or when they were playing Peyton Manning, recognized that that's what they needed to do. And the Eagles are actually built really well to do that. And you saw that in the first half.
Oh, that wedge is unstoppable. They're going to change the rules to make that play illegal. Like, they're not going to let you push the quarterback from behind anymore.
Had the Eagles went for a field goal attempt instead of that fumble at the end of the first half, we could be talking about a different game. Now, not so much different in my mind. I think it still would have ended in a very similar way, with a field goal being the difference maker in this. But they might have tried less through the air. Not the same score, maybe like in the 20s. But they would have tried less through the air in the second half. And they would have kept pounding the rock. And you would have saw more Kenneth Gainwell, more Boston Scott, more Jalen Hurts. And they would have just kept on going. But because they had to match power for power with Mahomes, and Kansas City did get a couple of stops that were important for them in the second half.
Especially in the third quarter, yeah.
And third down, it all plays a role in how this game shook down. And so when you brought up that the reason the Eagles didn't lose that game, it wasn't because of that call, it was because of what preceded it.
Yeah,
Yeah, when you look at what happened, is that they let Patrick Mahomes on the field more in the second half than they did in the first half, and that's a good way to lose a game, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, so as we break that down, the transition is opening kickoff. Kansas City scores like nothing, no attempt whatsoever. They're held to a punt and a field goal. The Eagles are in the rest of the third quarter, and they end up losing that quarter 14-3. And after Kansas City got that first touch on the second half, you felt that sideline erupt. Very similar to Jacksonville getting that first touchdown that they got against San Diego in the wild card weekend. Kansas City just started covering up, and they built a wave of momentum that really Philadelphia was not able to cover. And it really was a fact that there were no sacks in that game. The only real sack happened whenever Hurts got caught late. But Riddick was basically non-existent. And the reason was the pass rush wasn't getting enough time to get there. Way too many easy underneaths. And this goes back to Reed. You making Juju look wide open many times, and when he basically had disappeared for the previous 9 weeks. Juju was then back catching the ball. Granted, he had the shoulder contraption on, so there's probably an injury basis that never got fully disclosed there. But still, when you're talking about average run-of-the-mill players and making them take off, that's what Reed did. Reed put his team in a position of success. And the challenging part for me was it wasn't really challenged. All you had to do was step your defensive pressure up and get in their face. Because we did see in the red zone, with the exception of the wide open Sky Moore pass where they just failed to do their rub-off transition on defense, their red zone defense was very strong against the Chiefs in terms of slowing them down and making the Chiefs have to put the extra effort in. Actually, both of the red zone defenses were better, ultimately not holding all the way, but better. And you can argue that the play of the game was the 3rd and 5 I believe it was in the third quarter, when Kansas City held the Eagles to that field goal. Obviously, we look at the score and say that's a determining factor, but it was more of a momentum thing at that point in the game. Kansas City got in a zone, and they were absolutely feeling it. And really, Philadelphia, for all the hard nosed that they were, it felt that Kansas City was able to run the ball more effectively than the Chiefs, just for the simple fact that there wasn't enough pressure on the Kansas City running game on Pacheco in relation to what Kansas City's defense was doing to attack the offensive line of the Eagles.
Here's the piece that's really, really important. And you mentioned it before when you said that Patrick Mahomes didn't have to go deep.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that, what we saw on the field is indicative of Andy Reid as a coach and saying, I know what you're good at. I know what your team is the best at. And I'm going to do something in this game, and I'm going to game plan so that your best strengths become liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, what I mean is if your best strength is deep game defense, and I don't ever throw it deep, I've taken that out of the game.
Yeah.
I don't even have to deal with that anymore. Now, your other pass rush is incredible. But if I release the ball so quickly and I get it into the first level and I get it into like the start of the second level there, you can't use your pass rush because you have to worry about stopping the best player in the league in Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we also have three randos that, I don't deserve to call them randos, but Sky Moore, Valdez-Scantling,
second round pick, and then two guys that washed out of other programs.
And Juju, where if you ask me to catch a ball underneath, I can do that.
That's Juju's world.
Then you step it up and you get a guy in Isaiah Pacheco, and I can't remember how many times he ran the ball, but it was pretty efficient, and I think he had over like 70, 80 yards.
Especially as the game went on, he got more and more.
And you didn't even have to utilize Jerick McKinnon in the ways that you would typically utilize Jerick McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we spoke about this, we spoke that if the Chiefs were going to win this game, they had to defeat the Eagles' pass rush. How are they going to do that? With intermediate passing routes. What did they do? They beat the Eagles' pass rush with intermediate routes. What didn't they let the Eagles do? Well, they didn't let it. I mean, Marquise Valdez-Scantling was open on that long bomb, but he had misdirected himself. And I think that's the only time that I saw them throw the ball more than 10, 15 yards down the field.
It really was.
In that whole game. And it was indicative in his stats, right, where he only had, I think he had, 20 completions, maybe 18 completions for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Typically speaking, we're looking at Patty Mahomes with 250 yards, 280 yards, and 3 touchdowns with the same kind of stat line. Well, I want to say it one more time. Nick Sirianni got out-coached.
He did. There's no way around that.
Out-coached, and the Eagles were never out of this game. The turning point, like you said.
But it was like he got out-coached like he was an inferior coach. This isn't like Cliff Kingsbury against the Patriots.
This is a legend as a coach versus a coach that is very, very good.
Definitely an above average, yeah.
And you had a flipped switch moment where Andy Reid's like, I got him now.
And that happened about the time Rihanna was hanging in the air. That was when they figured it out.
Get there. And that's the thing that, when we were talking about the Chiefs being the underdog in this game on Friday, it didn't make any sense. And people.
It did make sense. My sprinkle was Eagles by exactly 4, and if that penalty doesn't happen, the Eagles get a ball back with 1:20 to go win the game by exactly 4. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it was a very good game. It's so anticlimactic by that penalty, but it also gets to another point to what you're saying about being outcoached. Sirianni wastes the timeout in the middle of the third quarter. He saves that timeout. You're not looking with 8 seconds left for the Eagles to have the ball. Eagles now have 48 seconds left. You're only down by 3. You can actually make something happen there. These are the little things that add up. And the other thing that got pointed out, going back to our little sprinkles on the betting show, every single kickoff in that game was a touchback.
Yeah.
However, both of the Eagles' punts, massive returns by Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of why Mahomes is subdued in his passing yards. When they did have the 2 short fields, they exploited it.
Mm-hmm.
So they score on defense, they get a short field, and then they get a midfield at midfield. And that was really the hitting yardage that gave the advantage to Kansas City. Because the Eagles' offense is beyond efficient when what they did yesterday. They put up 35 points in an NFL game. That should win every single time.
And this is why this Super Bowl, more than in a lot of past years, I believe had the 2 right teams in it. Although I still would have liked to have seen what Cincinnati did again.
I would have loved to see the Bengals, but
when we circle back to it and we say, okay, did they choose the 2 best teams? Well, they kind of did, and the play is indicative of that, because when I look at the Eagles, good teams and great teams capitalize on mistakes. What did they do? They capitalized on the fumble. They capitalized on the short fields. What did the Eagles do that was great? Well, they kept Patrick Mahomes off the field. They capitalized when he was not on the field. They utilized that time so well in the first half. And this game is probably one of the most evenly matched Super Bowls.
They play that game 100 times. There's a good chance it ends up being pretty close to 50-50.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, this is. I was looking at a couple of bets recently, and one better had Philadelphia. They bet it in like October or something like that, or maybe before the season started. I don't know. Philadelphia to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl for $120, and then Kansas City to beat Philadelphia in the Super Bowl for $120. Both of the payouts were over $20,000, I believe.
Shit.
So that person won either way.
Oh yeah, that's a good feeling knowing that.
The odds were tremendous. But going back to that, is the reason I bring that up is we kind of knew this, and it seems as though when we go back to the lines that were set on Friday and Saturday, the Chiefs being the underdog at plus 104 at minus, I believe it was -1.
It's point and a half, yeah.
Minus point and a half. On Sunday at about 2 p.m., I was just looking, and the line on the money line moved to minus 115, I believe. But the spread stayed the same, which was super unusual to me, that if you're going from plus money to, the juice, but the spread didn't move at all. This game was one of the biggest toss-ups that in recent memory for people to say. I don't really know and even live betting this game. You had people live.
Oh, it was all over the place, yeah.
You had people live betting the Eagles. You had people live betting the Chiefs. I actually had one guy who saw that the Chiefs were plus 600 for 2023-2024 Super Bowl champions and put $100 on that. And I was like, yo, dog, like, that's for next year. And I was like, I've screwed up doing that with some basketball stuff at one point in time too. But this game was so evenly matched throughout, and it was the mistakes that they made and that these teams capitalized on. And because they're good enough to capitalize on mistakes,
Kansas City didn't make a mistake. That's the difference. Well, the Eagles had 3 glaring mistakes, and Kansas City had 0.
But the only thing that Kansas City didn't do was get Patrick Mahomes on the field enough in the first half. But even with that, I mean, so they go in the locker room down 10. But part of the reason he's not on the field the first half is because of the scoop and score. Right.
That took a drive away from him and probably 5 minutes of possession. Right. You do that 5-minute swap, we're looking at a much more balanced first half.
In the end, the team that made the mistakes lost.
Yeah. And I mean, it's that straightforward, yeah.
Supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And it was 1, and then 2 punts, right? But and the glaring,
But you take a kick return inside the 5. What do you like? The punt team of the Eagles deserves way more gripe than Bradbury does. I mean, again, I still don't think that was a penalty. And despite all that, I still think the Eagles should have a chance.
Well,
but
Bradbury himself said it was a penalty, so
it was not a penalty. Bradbury's just saying that to be a good guy.
Trying to be a good guy about it. But
now, Greg Olsen spent 20 minutes saying that wasn't a penalty and just stopped broadcasting the game for a while. I'm sure he's going to get a talking to.
Fun fact, the ref that was reffing this game typically refs to the underdog against the spread, which happened to be Kansas City. They also happen to usually call games that are unders. This game did not go under the 50-point total. But typically speaking, this ref does call the game for the underdogs. But, I mean, come on, dude. If we're talking about the NFL as being
a 2-minute warning, you hadn't called any of those penalties the entire game to whip one out then. Now, again, I'm not saying that's why the Eagles lost.
Tinfoil hat, right?
Go for it.
Put on your tinfoil hat for a moment and tell me this story. You, Patrick Mahomes, comes out in the playoffs, injures himself, comes back. Glorious comeback, MVP. Similar situation comes out at the end of the first half. By the way, I want to know what they're giving him because I want all of that when I'm not.
Cortisone's a beautiful thing.
So he comes back in. He's cemented legend status, and if this game comes down and he's not winning it, what are we gonna do? I'll call a penalty. Right.
See, I don't think that was that at all. I think that was the ref thought he saw something. Again, it's a designed play to make it look like a penalty more than it is. And that's to the credit of Reed for making it and calling it. That's why Mahomes forced the ball there. They know that play call is designed to get a penalty. You look throughout that game, he didn't look for Juju on any other third down except for that play. It was a designed opportunity, and they got exactly what they wanted. I mean, that's at the end of the day, your offensive coordinator's job is to get what you want on offense. They did. I mean, that's success.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, take that job in Baltimore. See how it's like with a bad quarterback. Go Bieniemy. Get over there. Just on a side note to talk about Bieniemy, he needs to leave Kansas City because no matter how successful he is, he will never get credit being another offensive genius behind an offensive genius. For some reason, he doesn't get the credit, and maybe it's because of this, that the defensive coordinators got under Belichick. We see all them go all across the NFL and fail like crazy continuously. But Bieniemy does not get any love. And hopefully him in Baltimore does something. I highly doubt it just for the fact that there's no receivers. I don't know if it was official if he wasn't allowed to answer it until they're out of the playoffs.
Because I say this. If I am a coordinator and I'm doing my job really efficiently and I have the chance to win Super Bowls, play with a legendary coach, play with the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in football, and I can do all those things, and I'm getting paid a good amount of money to do that. To become a head coach, I better be getting paid a lot more because I don't have that kind of complex where I have to go and do it on my own. Because if I'm being successful here, I'm riding it. I'm riding it until I get the job as Kansas City's head coach when Andy Reid retires because
because they go to that DC.
Right? Unless they give it to the defensive.
Oh, they're not giving it to that DC.
But you think about it, and
that was the McDaniels argument, really, at the end of the day, until Oakland overpaid him to leave. Looks like they're going to regret that, but.
And that's kind of the thing where it's like if I have the opportunity to prove my worth as a head coach, you got to ask yourself the question, and this will go into it. If Bieniemy, right? That's how you say
Bieniemy, I believe, yeah.
If he ends up leaving, you're going to ask two questions. Was the success of Patrick Mahomes due to Patrick Mahomes? Was it due to Andy Reid? Was it due to Bieniemy? If he leaves and he can't do the same things that he's doing now, you're going to ask yourself, well, is he actually good? And that's why.
Well, he's at the perception now he's not the one doing it.
That's
You
what I'm
know,
saying.
yeah.
Is that if I can stay there and still make my money and keep doing my thing, then I'm not gonna go out and seek a job
Yeah,
somewhere else.
but likewise, if he does want to become a head coach, going to a coach that's perceived as a defensive coach gives him the opportunity to say, I actually can build something. And of the available offense coordinator slots available, despite the offseason trauma that is going to be the Lamar Jackson contract, um, he's the most stylish quarterback that he could have. So I understand the
I
desire to
get
do
it.
that. And we will do the Baltimore year in review and draft strategies as you keep watching our channel coming out to see the whole takes on them. But sticking with this game as a whole, I do agree with you that Reed was the better coach, and it showed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when we look at the three failures of that game, Hurts fumbled a ball that he basically hadn't done all year, so that was a fluke.
Fumble's a fumble. Yeah.
Yeah, a fumble's a fumble. I mean, there's never an excusable point for it, but you can't blame that on coaching. You can blame the kick returns or the punt returns rather
On coaching.
on coaching because especially the one he took down to the 5, that was just 6 guys standing around it looked like a little league play. Like he ran to the edge, realized all the defense is here. I'm going to stop and run the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles were deer in the headlights with it. Like it was like you've never covered a punt before. It was crazy.
The skill of the returner playing into that too. So
Yeah, no, that if Tomey takes that to the house, there's a very different impression of him, I believe, moving forward. Like I said, fantastic game. Twice Kansas
Giants
City wins on
legend.
the last second penalty. I think that needs to be noted as well. Not to throw shade on the orange or on the red team, but that they beat Cincinnati on a last second penalty, and they end up beating the Eagles on a last second penalty. It needs to be noted. Whether it
Giants
would have mattered or
legend.
not, it needs to be noted.
Giants legend Kadarius Toney. Let me put that out there. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours on Facebook, posted that Kadarius Toney is doing so much for the Giants still while not on the Giants. By beating the Eagles in the Super Bowl, Kadarius Toney has cemented his legacy as a Giants legend while not on the Giants.
Well, on that note, Bradbury is the one they cut. He's the one who makes the penalty and cost the Eagles the game. That's 2 former Giants conspiracies costing the Eagles. Oh, the wicked lines we draw.
It just works.
On that note, Giant season review coming out on Thursday.
Nice. Solid. So, Joe, what are your final takes on this game, on the whole NFL season as we kind of, wrap up what happened? I mean, I know a lot of people have some stuff in for the refs and, sticking just what happened on the field. I think we said what we needed to say. Anything else?
Yeah, so overall, one thing that needs to be blatantly clear, I guess this is true for all sports, it's a different game after December 1st. And it just progresses stronger and stronger as the years goes on. And it really wants you to point out teams like the Giants. You pack away early wins because you're more ready to go out of the gate. It can go such a tremendous way. And when I look at teams that I expect to be back, that was really their shortcoming. To me, the biggest disappointment of the entire season, including the injuries, is the Rams. At the end of the day, Super Bowl champions falling flat on your face on Thursday night. Granted, it's to the Bills, but no Super Bowl champion loses the opening game. And to just have that starting point, that to me, bank wins early, even when they're not sexy or impressive. We saw 2 teams that really, at the end of the day, were probably average, but because they dominated early, made the playoffs, those being Minnesota and the Giants, and to a degree, the Ravens. Winning games early that shouldn't still matter just as much. And there's no way to change that human nature thing. I got to get ready for a 17-week grind. Yeah, but this one matters just as much at the end. So why are we putting in effectively twice as much energy in December as we are in September? And that's just one of my general, things I wish. And it really does come down to they do preseason wrong. There's not enough hitting during training camp, the whole 9 yards, all the stuff that I complain about. But if you really want to take your team to the next level, start 6-1, beat up on the teams that aren't ready to go. That's how Jacksonville got in the playoffs. They started 3-1. They started 3-1. They had a valley in the middle, but they finished strong. If you start strong, unless you're the Jets, things normally work out pretty good. So, Bob, I want to give you the floor at the end of here as well. Here,
I mean, we said this on Friday, is that you can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. You can't do anything other than that. And the Chiefs and the Eagles did exactly that. The Eagles did it throughout the season. The Chiefs started to give up towards the end of the season, but
they still won, though.
We value coaching in the league of the NFL, and teams with good coaches tend to have good results. And you've seen that in the league. Almost every single team that made the playoffs this year has a good coach.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you see the teams at the bottom of the league, except for maybe the Rams. The coaching is right.
Lot to be desired, yeah.
It's not too desirable. So, going into next season, and there's going to be some coaching shakeups, and some have already happened. I'm really interested to follow the narrative for the Chiefs. Will the Chiefs win another Super Bowl? I mean, yesterday their odds were at plus 600, like I said, to win the championship next year. If you think that the Chiefs have even a outside chance at that,
wait.
You might as well just bet it.
Oh no, those numbers will get better as the season goes on. You wait till other teams get their splashes.
That's fine, but
don't ever do a preseason bet unless it's 2,000 or more. That's my answer. Your money sits on the table way too long.
It does. You're right about that, but
that's personal betting strategy, though.
If you think it's going to happen, and for all likelihoods, it feels like it's going to happen again, because they did this with a pretty inferior offense when it comes to
true, but we look at the two conferences. We know there are 4 teams in the AFC. There's still only 2 in the NFC.
You've got Cincinnati, you've got Buffalo, you've got all these pieces happening. But it could be, and I don't know what the bets are out yet, but it could be interesting if you go to the AFC Championship props, if they have AFC Championship props up, or whenever they do get it up, you look at Chiefs beat Bills, Chiefs beat Cincinnati. You go back in, you look at Cincinnati beats the Chiefs, Cincinnati beats Buffalo. You look at just...
On that note, first game of the year better be Cincinnati at Kansas City. That opening game of the year, that's what I want. I know they play each other. I just don't know where it's at. If that game is in Kansas City, that better be it.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to give Kansas City a good show out at the beginning of the season like that.
Or give them San Diego. One or the other.
It just feels like, we know what's happening there. And who knows what's going to happen in the NFC. But I was still very, very, very...
I think we're about to see Eagles and Niners battle it out for about the next 4 years. Yeah.
I'm curious.
By the way, the worst coach in the playoffs this year was McCarthy, to answer that question from before. And they're probably not making it this year, and it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens when it gets there,
That Zeke contract's an anchor. Oh man, watch the review of the Cowboys, guys. It'll be fun for you. We'll see you guys all. Watch the reviews coming out on the channel every Monday and Thursday. Will be another team, and then we will get into the postseason planning for free agency and draft specials thereafter.
And stick with us through the off season, like Joe said. We're going to put out more videos. Watch the content from the past year. Give us some feedback. Come and join us on the show and talk to us about your favorite team. Take a look at all the interviews that we've done so far, so you can get a look at what we've been doing, what we like to talk about, and come join us.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you. Pre-draft, pre-free agency, some of the best conversations to be had, especially whenever your team's got a lot of hope moving forward. We'd love to see it. Love to talk about it. Talking to you, Houston. Let's make something happen.